A scheme for a central station was proposed by Richard Granger and Thomas Sopwith in 1836, however this was not built. The Newcastle and Carlisle Railway had agreed to relinquish their insistence on exclusively using their radio terminus on the south bank of the River Tyne. They agreed with George Hudson on the general station north of the Tyne near the Spittal. Instead of crossing the Tyne by a low-level bridge and climbing to the Spittal by a rope-bridged incline, they would build an extension crossing at Scotswood and approaching on the north bank. They opened this line and a temporary station at Forth, with passenger trains starting to use that on the 1st of March 1847. Hudson, known as the Railway King, was concentrating on connecting his portfolio of railways so as to join the Edinburgh with the English network. His Newcastle and Berwick Railway obtained its authorising Act of Parliament in 1845, but for the time being it was to use the Newcastle and North Shields Railway Station at Carlisle Square. Building a crossing of the Tyne was obviously going to be a lengthy process, so that he gave the construction of a general station a low priority. The Tyne crossing became the high-level bridge. In February of 1846, the Newcastle and Carlisle Railway exerted pressure for the general station to be built, and the architect John Dobson was appointed by Hudson to design it, in association with engineer T. E. Harrison and Robert Stevenson. Gibson Kyle was the clerk of the works. By now, the general alignment of the Hudson's Railway had become clear. A main line from the south via Gateshead would approach over the high-level bridge and enter the general station from the east. The Newcastle and Berwick line would be extended from Carlisle Square and enter from the east. Through trains from London to Scotland would reverse in the new station, and the Newcastle and Carlisle railway trains would of course enter from the west. Dobson produced a general plans for the station, now to be referred as the Central Station, on a broad curve to the front Neville Street, so as to accommodate the alignment of the approaching railways to east and west. It was of a Romano-Italian design, with ornamental work on the Doric order. 2 through platform lines were shown, with 3 west end bays and 2 at the east end. There were to be 3 train shed roofs with spans of 60 feet. Extensive offices as well as refreshment facilities were shown, and there to be covered carriage drive on the Neville Street side extending from the Porte Cochra at each end. On the 7th of August 1847, a contract was let for the main part of the work to Mackay and Blackstock for £92,000, or the equivalent of £8.94 million today. A considerable amount of groundwork was necessary on the large site prior to the actual building work. The work did not progress speedily, and in 1849 Hudson's collection of railway companies suffered a financial shock. At the time of more difficult trading and a tighter money market, Hudson's personal dealings were exposed as shady. The York, Newcastle and Berwick Railway had been formed by a merger of previous smaller companies, and the YNBR wished to reduce the financial commitment to the central station substantially. Hotel accommodation and the covered carriage drive were eliminated. One of the through platforms was also removed from the plan. As built, the site was covered 3 acres and the length of the platform's faces were 830 yards. The train shed proved faster to construct, and on the 29th of August 1850, Queen Victoria visited the station by train and formally opened it. The day was declared a public holiday in Newcastle. The following day, the YNBR trains were diverted into it. The train shed was, jointly with the Lime Street station in Newcastle, the first to be designed and built in Britain using curved wrought iron ribs, and to support an arched roof. The large section of the ribs was fabricated using curved web pallets, specially rolled using beveled rolls. The novel technique was created by Thomas Charlton of Hawkes Crayshaw, and was estimated to have saved 14% on the cost of roof ironwork, compared with the cut-in reclinator plates at the curve. The station was lit by gas. A demonstration of electric arc lighting was made, but was not at that date a practical possibility for the large station space. The platforms were positioned 15 inches above the rail level. The station was shared from the beginning by the Newcastle and North Shields Railway, which abandoned its earlier terminus at Carroll Square to the east and which had operated since 1839. The Newcastle and Carlisle Railway used the central station from the 1st of January 1851, but also abandoned its earlier terminus at Forth. In 1861, the York, Newcastle and Berwick Railway had also merged with others to form the North Eastern Railway, and it was now desired to amalgamate with the Newcastle and Carlisle Railway too. The Corporation of Newcastle used the opportunity to necessary Parliament bill for the amalgamation to insist on construction of the abandoned Port Coqueret, and this was designed by Thomas Proser and completed in 1863. In the 1860s, the passenger train service was increased considerably, especially as branch lines opened. 6 platforms were increased to 9 in 1871 and to 12 in 1877. And then to 15 in 1894. An additional through island platform was provided in 1871, occupying space formerly in use by stabling carriages. Increasing traffic continued and also increased train lengths, and it was clear that a major extension of the station was essential. Newcastle was to be given city status in 1882 and was supportive of the work, seeing it as a civic improvement. 4th Street was displaced southwards, and 2 new train shed roofs covered the southward extension of the station. In addition to a large expansion to the east took place, with additional bay platforms there on the north side of the former bays. The original through track was blocked to form east and west bays, so there were only 3 through platform lines. This work was completed in 1894. The new group of bay platforms at the east end of the station had their own concourse quadrangle, known at the time as Tynemouth Square. There was a separate booking hall for these local services, and at this stage the roof covered 7.5 acres in area. There were also 15 platforms at a length of 3,000 yards. An image of the locomotive Puffin Billy in Bywell's article was captioned, but is not the Puffin Billy of 1840, which is currently on display at the Science Museum in London. The locomotive in Bywell's article is simply known as Billy. It was presented to Newcastle upon Tyne Corporation for preservation in 1881. Initially it was displayed on a plinth at the north end of the high-level bridge, but was moved to the interior of Newcastle Central Station in 1896. It remained there until 1945, when it was moved to the city's Museum of Science and Industry, and then moved again in 1981 to the Stevenson Railway Museum in North Shields, where it is still on display to this date. The early history of the locomotive is uncertain. It's probably a George Stephenson locomotive and was probably built in Killingworth Colliery workshops around 1815 to 1820. In the 1900s, the North Eastern Railway started replacing the gas lighting in the station with electric arc equipment. Further use of electricity came in 1904 when several suburban lines were electrified using the third rail system to form the Tyneside electric system. Electric trams were introduced using Central Station from the 1st of July 1904. The tracks on platforms 1 to 6 were equipped with electrified third rails, and platform 7 was later electrified to handle electric trains to South Shields. Another major development came on the 1st of October 1906 when the King Edward VII Bridge was opened, crossing the Tyne from the southwest of the station. Since the 1850, East Coast mainline trains had entered Newcastle from the south via the high-level bridge to the southeast. This meant, however, they had to reverse in order to continue their journey, which lengthened journey times and led to congestion at the busy junction east of the station. The 4-track King Edward Bridge remedied this by allowing north to south trains to leave or enter from either side of the station. The triangular junction at Gateshead side would allowed for greater flexibility, allowing trains from Sunderland to use the bridge if necessary. In 1909, the Central Station became Newcastle's only major city centre station when the former Blyth and Tyne Railway terminus at Newcastle Newbridge Street was closed, and its trains diverted into Central Station with a new connection via Manners. The Tyne and Weir metro system opened in 1980, taking over and improving many of the Tyneside suburban routes which had declined through British Railways management. The underground Central Station for metro trains was constructed during the late 1970s underneath the main line station and opened in 1981. Part of the Port Coqueret was temporarily dismantled while evacuation work took place. The metro system was a considerable success. Many conventional rail services were transferred there, and several of the East End bays were closed and converted into car parking and other usage. The Carlisle line was diverted to enter Newcastle over the King Edward Bridge of 1906, and a large out-of-town shopping development, the Metro Centre, was opened with the station on that line. The change in pattern of the railway services meant that terminating trains were significantly fewer and through trains had increased. The emphasis on bay platforms at the station was no longer appropriate. The opportunity was taken in conjunction with the East Coast Mainline electrification scheme inaugurated in 1991 by British Rail to extend the station southwards to provide more through platforms. This encroached onto land occupied by through tracks previously used by goods trains, which had seen little use since the withdrawal of many goods services in the 1960s. A new island platform was provided, built around the southern wall of the station, and 2 platform faces are divided so that they provide 4 numbered platforms, 5 to 8, generally used for local trains. So to get us started here at Newcastle, we have 156 480 and 180 102, working the 0823 Northern Service from Chatfield to Carlisle, and 5 Alpha 61 from Eton TRS&D to Sunderland, respectively. And as that disappears around the corner, we see 801206 departing, working the 0827 LNER Resumer service from Edinburgh Waverley to London King's Cross. Next around the corner for LNER is 800 108, working the 0847 LNER Resumer service from Leeds to Aberdeen. Over on the far side departing is 221136, working the 0835 cross-country service to Banbury. Arriving to terminate with a Northern Rail service off of Carlisle is 156 490. One in, one out now as 220010 and 220033 depart with the 0840 cross-country service from Edward Waverley to Plymouth, while 803 005 arrives, working the 0842 LUMO service from London King's Cross to Edward Waverley. Coming around the corner is 802 204, working the 0844 Transpennine Express service to Liverpool Lime Street via Leeds and Manchester Victoria. Going under the head code 5 November 10 from here to Heaton TRSMD is 156490. Coming around the corner is 158871, working the 0859 Northern service from Carlisle to Morpeth. Another 158 leaving is 158860, working the 0857 Northern service from Middlesbrough to Hexham. And as that disappears around the corner, we see the departure of 801229, working the 0858 LNER Zuma service from Edinburgh Waverley to London King's Cross. Arriving to terminate when a Northern Rail service off of Saltburn is 158853. Arriving under the head code 5 Delta 92 from Darlington to Heaton TRSMD is 156491. And your final train of the session is 156468, working the 08923 Northern service from Morpeth to Carlisle. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed what you saw, click on the 2 videos here at the end screen. Helps out the channel. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you are new and got this far. And we'll see you all in the next video, folks, wherever that may take us. We'll see you then, folks.